So hey everyone, I'm Clive.
This is Akos.
And today we're going to talk about how to simplify your quality process when it comes to receiving models from your supply chain. We'll be showing how bringing models to you, not just in one go, but in a drip-fed, piecemeal fashion, makes it a lot easier to check for compliance and make sure that you're working with models that are good models, that are ready. We'll do two demos. That'll be the main bulk of today. And we'll present some best practices in a summary at the end. We know that BIM is used for so many different things. There's lots of different model uses or BIM uses, as some use the terminology. And whether it's for designing a building and making sure that it fits together, or analyzing whether people can move through a building, or whether you can get quantities from it for the estimate, simulate the building, facilities, hand it over as an asset model. There's lots and lots of different uses. And with great power certainly comes great responsibility. Don't misuse that power. It's like right on the line in that one. One project, do you remember there was a bridge project? I think it was one that you worked on, Akos.
Yeah, sure. That was pretty interesting one. I mean, they were using some pretty advanced quantity takeoff and BIM tools, but I think there were some issues with the quality checking, because in the end, they managed to submit 2 bridges instead of 3. So they won the project, but I'm not sure that they were that happy about it.
So there were 3 bridges on the project, but they only priced 2 of them. Is that right?
Something like that, yeah.
And I remember meetings where it's almost like people came to blows, where the BIM coordinator said, where are the hangers in the model? And it can get quite heated when somebody should be modeling something and doesn't. And then this one as well, I remember, so Akos and I having a conversation about this, talk about model quality. I mean, BIM is supposed to be very accurate. Obviously, when you scale a project, what tends to happen?
Yeah, in this one, I remember it was scaled up, I think 1.1 or something like that. So yeah, the quantities were a little bit off, 10% too high. So quite the opposite of the bridge case.
But a lot of the time, there's this desire to use one model and hand it off to the next team. But sometimes this happens as well, when maybe the construction team would build a model again, remodel. Mark Sawyer, I remember saying, why use one model when 5 will do? And I love that phrase, because it's all about, you know, the inefficiency that we have in this workflow. So we're trying to improve that. Let me launch a quick poll. So it sounds like you've had a lot of these, and it all ends up in missing deadlines. And we looked at this and we said, well, what's the root cause? Why do we have this great process of building information modeling, but still have challenges? And when we looked at it, well, could it be the process? Could it be just an inconsistent or undefined model checking process? Maybe, you know, this little guy here, maybe he's watching TV at the same time. Could it be just not very good record keeping or documentation, understanding what the requirements have been, who's submitting them, how is that process actually documented, and maybe sometimes not captured and checked. It could be the tools as well. So we've got lots of different tools, and if we get requirements maybe in a spreadsheet and it's disconnected from the workflow that people are submitting their work in, it can be challenging. And we've said, well, maybe it's a little of all of these different things. It's process, it's tools, it's training of the teams, it's really understanding how this all goes together. And we asked ourselves, how could we simplify it? How could we make it a little bit easier? Well, the first thing is to begin with the end in mind. So we know that we're going to use these models. So if we've got a model use case, we have to review the model against the original requirements before we use it. Being able to submit the model connected to the original requirements, wouldn't that be easier for not just the people, the management team reviewing it, but also for the people that are submitting their work? If they could check it as they are delivering it, wouldn't that make it easier? And then what about on the defining of requirements? Obviously, you have to set the model requirements, but they have to be connected to a purpose. So sort of going backwards in these steps, hoping that we can define a true purpose. Why are we creating this model? Setting the requirements for that model in accordance with the purpose, and then having a process that captures the model as it's created, with the user providing the model connected to the original requirements so that they can do their self-checking. And then you get a chance to review, and hopefully it's in piecemeal, the pieces that are actually just ready for your review. And we're going to talk about 4 model uses and define in two demos, one defining the requirements, and the second one is going through and showing how we would check those as we go, as we create the models. The first example is a logistics simulation. Some people refer to these as 4D simulations, understanding how the building goes up over time. Maybe this, in a logistics simulation, we would really need to know that there's going to be a boundary fence defined so that we can understand where you access and egress the building or the site. We need to know where the adjacent buildings are or the buildings on the site are, so being able to understand those. In the second example, we'll look at the coordination of underground, so foundations. Where are they? Are there zones of influence under the foundations? Where are the main underground services? The third one is a structural takeoff. A lot of people refer to this as 5D BIM, being able to quantify the elements and use them in a takeoff and an estimating workflow. And this, we would need the structural frame. And then the fourth one is for an asset information model. A lot of people refer to this as 6D BIM, or a lot of other sustainability, etc. 60, 70, a lot of dimensions. We like to refer to this as what does the owner need in order to maintain and keep their building. So in this example, we'll have one piece of equipment that has certain requirements. So let's dig into a demo, shall we?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to start by creating a new project, and I'm going to use the two modules, the scope to define tasks and the verify in order to check those requirements. I might like to start by creating milestones for each of these purposes. And in this example, we had 4 purposes. So if I had 4 different milestones, and the first one was for the logistics. So we might have a construction logistics milestone, and we might have the coordination milestone. This might be the underground coordination milestone, for example. And we would define, and I won't go through this in too much detail because we've done this in other webinars, but in order to give you a background, you would have milestones for each of those purposes. We could also define the description about that, and that would define more detail to help really understand why they're creating these models. Then on the left-hand side, we're going to start with a structure of maybe some folders. Maybe this is for the logistics model structure, and so on and so forth. And then on the left-hand side, we could use the library to start building up a set of requirements. So yeah, and Akash is putting in the chat, if you would like to look at some of these in our previous webinars, please just jump into those. In this example, the logistics model, we might want to select from a bunch of our existing definitions that we have here. And in our example, we said that we wanted to have the site fencing. So I can drag in the fencing, and I can also have existing structures, for example. And then I want to make sure that they are inside of this folder. So I'm dragging them to the right. Blue is good. You can see the structure of the lines of where you're going to drag it and drop it. And as we're doing this, we're building a list of items that could be required at certain points in the project. In order to define what is required and who is required to do that, we can use the quick assign tools on the right-hand side to say that I would like a certain amount of maybe detailed geometry. I need it to be just proposed in this example, and I would like this team to be responsible for it. And I'm going to simply assign that as 2 requirements. I can get into a lot more detail by opening the cell, defining a description, adding checklist items, adding information, attachments, assigning it to team members, etc. So yeah, let me jump to this one. Here's one I prepared earlier, where we have the site and maybe some attachments, maybe some descriptions and checklist items of exactly what I'm looking for. And now we can see we've got construction logistics, underground coordination, cost estimate, and the asset information model as 4 different milestones, along with, for example, the cooling towers are requiring things like the warranty end date. And even this is defined in much more detail, saying that the value, if I look at this, the value must be a date that is after a specific date. So we can get into a lot of detail about these requirements. Please look up the other webinars to understand a lot more about that.
If you think about it from ISO 19650 perspective, for example, so we are creating here the information containers, right? And these information containers would be pieces of information that we can manage through the entire project, from the very first draft till the handover and management of the project, putting everything. So first defining actually the purposes why we are doing something, then in a breakdown, finding out whether it's just a list of elements, list of items and tasks and deliverables that we have to create, or putting it into a more sophisticated classification structure, whichever serves your needs the best. And in this matrix, you would have these information containers, which are going to contain all the relevant information from geometry to information to attachments, to descriptions, to responsible parties, communicating also the shift of responsibilities and all those which are currently headaches. Actually, shift of responsibilities was not among our poll questions, and now I would put it on, because that's also always a problem, having these kind of overlapping elements and not knowing who is responsible for what at a certain point in time. So pretty much that's what you see on this matrix on the screen now.
Absolutely, very, very well said. The definition of requirements is super important. We are going to move to the second part of the demonstration, which is how do we check for what we've just asked for, and what is the process to understand before we use that model for the logistics simulation, what do we need to check? For the underground coordination, let's make sure that we don't get a load of unnecessary clashes or false clashes by knowing exactly what is in the model before we go and coordinate. Let's make sure that we don't miss the structural takeoff, the bridge, for example, in our takeoff. And let's make sure that we've got everything that the owner wanted before we hand over that asset information model. So let's take a look at the second part of this demo. It's not going to all happen at the same time. We're in the grid view at the moment of the scope. If we move to the timeline view, we will see all of these tasks and when they are due to start and finish, and making sure that we have the right resources assigned to them. I've assigned a lot of this to Akos because he's going to be working on these tasks, but making sure that we know when these deliverables are due and working per milestone or per phase or per stage or per deliverable, and being able to filter for all of those is really important across all of these views. So Akos is going to be working in the track page and updating that, and also in the verify and saying what is ready for review. I'm going to look at this and say, I'm a manager, and although I can see that they have created a full site logistics model at the moment, I'm not interested in reviewing the whole thing because I don't know how much of it is actually ready for me yet. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to go to the filter and I'm going to say, I only want to see, I don't care what status it is in, I want to only see what's completed. So Akos is saying that these two are complete. What are they and what are they related to? Well, if I look at the existing structures, I can see these are the elements that Akos is referring to when he says that the existing structures are complete, and they're complete to this amount. And he has checked himself that the height of these structures matches the brief. We could go through that and understand more about it, but my responsibility is to review and do the quality check on his submitted work. And the same way for the fence, maybe there are certain requirements. So maybe it's looking for certain geometry and including the materials and footings. And basically my work is made a lot more streamlined because all I'm doing is looking at the parts of the model that are complete. Maybe the hoarding, if I was looking at this, I would want to see it in context with some other content. So maybe I'd want to see the hoarding and see where it was in relation to the other parts of the logistics model. And when I was happy with this, I would simply say, I will verify these tasks and those tasks will go away. And if I was to see the whole model, there are now views of this model with certain color coding that show the status of these tasks. And if I can simply now see these are the verified items, and these are the things that are unlinked so far and yet to be submitted to me. So this workflow can go on as people are building the model, and you can catch the challenges, the problems as we go, rather than waiting until the end. If I was to go to the underground coordination and start to look for just the elements, the items that are in the model, so here we want to see the structural model and find out what Akos is submitting. So Akos is submitting here the foundations, and then the zones of influence as well. So we can start to see, okay, the column foundations required certain aspects, maybe properties that were required as well on the elements. So we could identify what the properties are. and see the properties on all of the elements. And look out in the future, actually, coming very soon, some big updates, two things that we're really excited about launching. One is the auto linking, and the other one is automatically checking. So this would be checked automatically and turn green if it was there. If it's not there, then it would show as red, and we would not verify that this has been done. So look out for those. I'm going to check that these are done, and looks like this is just an element that needed to be added, and now we can see the whole building. And again, we can see the color coding to say these are the elements that have been verified and we are happy with, and these are the things that are yet to be done. We would look at the cost estimate. So again, I can see this, I can review it, each piecemeal rather than waiting for that whole thing to be done. And we can start, oh, yeah, nice, there's a QA issue. Akash said.
I found something, yeah. I ran into some issues on the concrete stairs, but
cool.
We'll be pursuing.
And the same sort of principle, taking you through for the asset model, and maybe this is very repetitive to show you, but there are certain things that might be different in each of these. So for the asset information model, where we maybe have a lot more of this model coming together, and in this example, let's look at the whole model and see, this is for cooling towers. Okay, great, there's a cooling tower. What did we have to do? We have to model its space size, etc. We had some properties that needed to be there. We need to check points of connection. So is this connected? Looks like it's half connected, maybe. And model with exact product size. So it looks like, yes, this does look like the exact product, and maybe there's warranty details and things that we need to check, and that will be automated for us before I say, okay, great, that's done. Everyone's happy. This is the status of the model. So quickly, we went through all that process, but the principle is that we don't want to release this model until the point when we are happy or published. And published status will be able to then be downloaded, so that teams would then come in and be able to download that model and use it in other places. Or if they're integrated with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, we would be able to keep the models synced and keep them in one place just on the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Okay, we've covered a lot. We looked at how to define quickly some of those requirements down to the properties on elements, and also whether those properties were in a certain range or a certain date, or if it was warranty, for example. Then we looked at the verification of whether we had everything in place for each of these model uses down to the properties. And we hinted there at some of the exciting features that are coming soon, the auto linking and auto checking. So look out for those. The best practice is know what to check against. So instead of just waiting for the model to come and then opening the model and spinning it around and trying to see whether it looks sort of okay and usable, know that you're checking against something and have that list of requirements. Define a workflow, so not just wait for the model to be submitted and then check it. As we shared here, if it's in piecemeal in a smaller bite-sized set of requirements, it means that it's easier and much more likely that you're going to be achieving that. How to properly document what you're checking against. So instead of just a spreadsheet that's very difficult to understand and then share and interpret and then check against, understand how to actually document that and use the level of information need framework. Understand what is maybe not working and have a process to be able to improve that, to continuously improve that. Make sure that the team knows what tools, where the CDE is. Are they uploading the models to BIM 360, Autodesk Construction Cloud, into Planoly? Like, where are those models being uploaded and managed? And make sure you check every single model. Don't just wait until they're in a coordination process and thousands of clashes. So how to simplify your QA process, allocate the right time, combine the tools and the processes, know what to check against, define a workflow, document it, and implement a feedback loop. A lot to think about. If you have some questions, or you would like to dig deeper, or you'd like to see or get involved with some of the upcoming auto linking and auto checking inside of the Planoly modules, inside of the Verify module, let us know. We are ready to start sharing some of that and get some detailed feedback. So if you're a long-time user, please get in touch. And if you're looking for the Information Manager training, register for it here. You will get notified when that is released shortly. Some really detailed training, right the way from the basics all the way to becoming an expert and following the ISO 19650 workflow. Cool. So we will see you in the next webinar, episode 6. Speak soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Akash.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.